Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really dark and, well, an unsettling story from the antebellum South. This is all drawn from the historical narrative of buried secrets, and it's a tale of power, cruelty, and a revenge that simmered for nearly a decade.
So let's set the scene. It's Charleston, South Carolina, 1847. We're at the Ashcraft's manor, which is like the pinnacle of high society. The Ashcraft are everything. But a discovery in one of their slave cabins is about to bring that entire world crashing down.
The person right at the center of this whole scandal, none other than Levvenia Ashcraft, the matriarch of the family. And when she's found, she's in a state of just utter degradation. She's covered in marks, her eyes are totally vacant, and she's there, waiting for two enslaved men.
But here's the thing that's so interesting, and frankly terrifying about this. She wasn't a victim of force. Every single night, she went to that cabin by choice. And that brings us to the central, horrifying question of this whole story. How did the most powerful woman in Charleston society end up here?
So, yeah, let's start with that moment, the shocking discovery. The moment her husband, Theodore, walks in and his entire reality just shatters.
But you know, to really understand the end, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, 8 years earlier, to 1839, because this is where the seeds of this devastating revenge were first sown. And they weren't sown by the enslaved, but by Levvenia herself.
You see, publicly, Levvenia was the picture of aristocratic grace. She was a woman who passionately believed in the so-called divine hierarchy of society. But in private, her defining trait was this: cold, calculated, psychological cruelty. She didn't just punish people. She wanted to humiliate them, to strip away the very humanity of the people she enslaved. And this cruelty, it really reached its peak with one specific act. To punish a house servant named Grace, whose quiet dignity she absolutely detested, Levvenia decided to sell Grace's two teenage sons, Elijah and Nathaniel. And not just sell them, but sell them to different plantations hundreds of miles apart, making sure they would almost certainly never see each other or their mother ever again.
In their final moments together, a completely heartbroken Grace gave her sons a mission. And it wasn't just about survival. It was about a different kind of justice. She told them, make their tormentor understand the pain of having everything, absolutely everything, stripped away.
So what came next was 8 years of just brutal suffering for these brothers. But this period wasn't just about endurance. It was a crucible. It was a fire that transformed them into the architects of a truly elaborate revenge.
And this is a great way to see how they changed, separately but on parallel paths. So you have Elijah, who's sent to this incredibly violent plantation. There, a Haitian priestess teaches him about herbs and roots, things that could actually affect the mind. At the same time, you have Nathaniel working as a house servant, becoming this ghost in the halls of the elite. He's studying their weaknesses, their hypocrisies, learning the language of power. Through a series of events that are almost too unbelievable to be true, the brothers managed to engineer a reunion. And by 1847, they were both back at Ashcraft Manor, ready to spring the perfect trap.
Now back at the manor, they very quickly discovered Levvenia's greatest vulnerability. It turns out the woman who preached racial purity in public was secretly using her power to sexually exploit enslaved men. It was the ultimate hypocrisy, and for them, it was the perfect crack in her armor.
Okay, so here's the crucial part. They didn't just expose her. I mean, that would have been way too simple and probably would have gotten them killed. Instead, they came up with this sophisticated four-step plan. First, witness her secret. Then, use it for leverage. Offer her a supposed private arrangement, and then, step by step, seize complete psychological control. So what happened next wasn't just simple blackmail. No, it was a masterclass in psychological warfare. It was a campaign designed to systematically dismantle Levvenia's entire identity from the inside out.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how they combined their unique skills. They turned her secret desires against her. Elijah used his herbal mixtures to lower her inhibitions, creating this powerful chemical dependency. And all the while, Nathaniel was orchestrating the psychological manipulation, slowly turning her into the one begging for their attention.
You know, in the beginning, Levvenia was absolutely convinced this was her idea. She believed she was the one orchestrating these secret encounters. In her mind, this was just another way she was exerting her power over them, a privilege she was granting. But the brothers were playing a much, much longer game. They expertly cultivated a physical and psychological addiction that was so profound, her entire carefully constructed world began to revolve around these secret meetings at night. Her identity as the queen of society was literally dissolving.
And within just a few weeks, the transformation was staggering. The proud matriarch who demanded absolute respect was now crawling, literally crawling, to a remote slave cabin, willingly debasing herself for the two men whose family she had completely destroyed.
And that brings us to the final act. Theodore Ashcraft, who wasn't exactly an observant husband, could no longer ignore his wife's terrifying decline. He decides he has to find out what's going on.
So on that cold November night, he follows her. He creeps up to the cabin. He peers through a little crack in the wall, and he sees a scene that just completely shatters his understanding of his wife, his home, his entire world.
So in the confrontation that follows, Theodore realizes he is completely and totally trapped. I mean, look at his options here. If he punishes the brothers, the whole sordid story comes out. The family name? Destroyed. Forever. But if he does nothing, he has to live with this profound humiliation. The brothers had him in a perfect checkmate.
His solution was just to erase the whole situation. The brothers were sold far away to a plantation in Texas, their silence guaranteed by distance. And Levvenia? She was locked away in her room, declared mentally ill, and she would spend the next 12 years in confinement until her death, completely broken.
And that, right there, is the completion of their mission. See, they didn't just get revenge. They delivered a form of justice that perfectly mirrored the original crime. Levvenia had stripped them of their family and their dignity, and in return, they stripped her of her sanity, her status, and her very identity.
Which leaves us with the story's central, haunting question. In a system that's built on unimaginable cruelty, can revenge ever really be justice? Or does it just become another horrifying act in a world that's completely lost its moral compass? It's a question with no easy answer at all.